This podcast is brought to you by the Association for Coaching, the world's leading international professional body which is advancing coaching in business and society worldwide, where this year we celebrate 20 years of vision and impact. My name is Maxine Bell, and today I am both a host and guest in this very special episode celebrating our 100th podcast release. And in honour of that, we thought we would do something a little different today. And you're in for a treat because you will get to meet the whole podcast team, including myself, all working behind the scenes to bring you a great quality podcast every week. I'll let the team introduce themselves, and we'll start with you, Smaranda.
Thank you, Maxine. Thank you for having us here. So I'm Smaranda Dochia. I'm a Director of Digital Learning and Podcasts for the Association for Coaching. Been working with the AC for the past 8 years, and I'm really happy to be here and to join the team in this endeavor.
Hi, I'm Miranda Woodhouse. So I've been with the AC for, I think it's about over 2 years now, and I've been supporting the AC with their marketing and currently on maternity leave, which are the noises you might hear in the background. So it's really lovely to be back with the team for this call to reflect on everything we've been doing.
So my role with the AC is to help manage and produce the podcast series. And I was just reflecting the other day, I can't believe how quickly it's gone. And here we are at 100 episodes already in a couple of years. But also, and I'm sure we'll get into the conversation today about this, but just how much ground we've covered and the people that we've met and the hosts that we've developed. And I have to say that this is one of the most exciting teams that I work with. I love our team meetings. I love what we do, and I love the ripple effects that it has in the world. So to be part of that for me is very, very special. And I don't take that for granted. So
thanks, Rob. I'll introduce myself and then we'll move on to Darren Robson, who's here today with us as well, who was right at the beginning of the seed of idea with this podcast series. My name is Maxine Bell, as I said, and I'm the podcast coordinator. And I joined the team right at the beginning of this year, to sort of December, January time. And I agree with Rob. I've absolutely loved being part of this team. It's very creative and very equal. And I have great fun sort of helping just support our hosts and guests in getting the series out. So Darren, would you like to say a bit about why you're here today?
Yeah, hello all. I'm Darren Robson. I've been with the AC since March 2003. There you go. Look at that. Isn't that a long time? March 2003 was when I initially got involved in the team. So I'm part of the global board and I'm part of the AC founding team. And yeah, it's a real privilege to be on the call here today and also to be back with the team that have helped to create this podcast. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this jam session goes.
Thanks, Darren. I actually wanted to start with you because I believe that you might have come up with the idea for this podcast series. Is that correct? I'd just like to know a bit more about how that started and what were the steps after that.
Well, I think it'd be lovely if somebody said that. But I think, as always, with most ideas in the AC, they come from lots and lots of different avenues and lots of different people as well. So I think myself and Smaranda were definitely there at the beginning, joined quickly by Miranda and Wendy. But actually, before that as well, the sort of genesis of me becoming more aware of podcasts was, I happened upon Rob. I was sat behind a camera in London filming an event, and Rob and I connected a long time ago now, probably 6 or 7 years ago, maybe even 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know. It was a long time ago. And that was probably one of the early stages of where sort of podcasts and the potential of podcasts started to come into my orbit of awareness. And it was actually Rob that helped me to start thinking about it, if I'm really honest. And then we did, Smaranda was doing some work with Sue and others. So they were capturing podcasts or just capturing audio captures of various different interviews that we did. And they were going down relatively well and being successful. And I think we just started to realize that there was a potential for the coaching profession to have a voice and to create a space for voices. And as we all know, I think the AC is a really wonderful and eclectic community that's in 80, 90 odd plus countries. It's probably even more than that now. And we wanted to capture people's ideas and stories and give them a format and a structure within which they could be celebrated, really. And as has been said at the very beginning, it's fantastic that we're already at 100th. And we're probably on our way. We're probably not there yet, but towards 100,000 listeners as well, or listens, which is really fantastic. So it's something I think this team collectively and all of the people that have supported us can be really proud of. But I think in terms of the genesis, I think there's a whole series of people. So I wouldn't lay claim to that on my own personally. Definitely myself, Smaranda and Rob and Miranda and Wendy and others. We're all part of it, really. And it's been a huge amount of fun to be involved in it and to get it going. And also just to really watch the professionalism that's been built into it as we go forward. I think as we'll capture some of the stories, I think there's lots that we can all be really proud of. I know with myself, Rob and Smaranda, we've often talked about the fact that this voice that we're creating, this collective voice around AC podcasts, is going to reverberate beyond our lifetime, which I think is so exciting. You know, when you're creating a piece of content that actually is someone's story or someone's insight, and you know that is probably going to be there longer than they're going to be on this planet, I think there's something very special to that. So I think that we know that we're creating sound ripples that will go out for generations. And I think that's something that we can all be really, really proud of. You know, I think there's a timeliness to the stories that we're capturing as well. I mean, some of the things are in the moment, in that time, but quite a lot of what we're talking about and what's been captured so far are, you know, they're truths. They're things that are so important. They're core principles that actually people need to carry through their professional life, through their personal life. So hopefully people find little pearls of wisdom in all the various different stories and people that we're interviewing.
Yeah, I must say, since I've joined, I've been really impressed with the collaboration and the creativity that goes on with the team. So I can understand what you're saying about it not just being one person's idea that's come together. Now, one of the things, Miranda, has impressed me is the systems that you've set up, the detail that you've put up. I think this is one of your skills, is this kind of way of project managing and getting a journey from A to B. So the idea was there at the beginning. What were the next steps that followed on from that?
Well, I'd back up a second, Maxine, and say that we've been on a journey really for the past 7-8 years with everything that we're doing with digital learning. And then the podcast came as a complementary aspect of everything that we're putting out there in terms of webinars, webinar series, inter-programs, a lot of complementary webinars for members on all the themes and topics that you can imagine that are relevant for all those in the coaching community today. And I think we did, I don't think I know that we did a webinar series with Rob in 2018 on how to build or grow your coaching practice with podcasts. And that was, I think, the beginning of the beginning for this, because it was like we do with all the webinar series. It was sharing the experience in a certain area, which Rob wonderfully did. But then we found that there were so many people in our community that were interested in following up and learning more and learning how to do that on their own. So we continued that with ongoing Q&A on podcasting for coaches, and we've been supporting the community ever since. So those in our community who are AC members who are interested in creating their own podcasts basically are showing up to our Q&A, and Rob is sharing expertise from everything that goes on from technical to marketing and having guests on show and how do you set up everything. So we've learned together, I think, in this entire period. And when the time came for us to set up our own podcast channel, which we've done a year and a half ago, then we almost had it paced out. Everything was there. Rob, of course, helped in the entire process and supported us with all the different steps, choosing platforms, laying down the path for marketing. We decided that we want to have a channel that is going to have an ongoing release of episodes. So every Monday we have another episode that is being released. We've never had a break in the entire year. So be it Christmas or summer holidays, we're still releasing an episode on every Monday of every week. And that's what got us here. So even if we're doing things in thematic series, which I can talk about in a moment, it's an ongoing flow of podcasts that we are delivering. So that's pretty good for a really small team, I think. Yeah, what we've done with the tools and everything that we've set up was to take it one step at a time and say, okay, if we're going to do a podcast, we're a whole channel. We started one series and we're recording a series after series. So we're identifying a host. Then with the host, we're identifying the guests, and then we are moving on with recording with them. And then we have a whole process around getting those recordings edited, and then getting the copy written, and then preparing everything for the release of the episode, and then doing the marketing for it. So there is a whole process behind that we set up. And I'm sure Rob and Maxine can say a little bit more about that, and Miranda as well, because they each have their part in it, in this entire process.
Yeah, I guess obviously I've come in, Wendy was there before myself, and I've come in January. But I was fortunate that your systems were already sort of set up. You've got a kind of very organized way of doing things that helped me to learn what I was doing. I find it very efficient, very clear and very detailed. And for me, that's a really important thing in connection with my values. And I think the values that all of us have got, which is to make things as loving really as we can do, and as helpful to the guests and hosts that we work with. So I've been really impressed with that, how thorough we are in the way we do things to try and support our hosts, but also give people the least amount of work they need to do so we're not wasting time. So it's a really good foundation on which the creativity flows through and the ideas. And also, I think for me, the openness you have to different themes and different ideas that get put forward. I got this job because I came forward with an idea for the creative coaching series back in November. And from that conversation, I was offered work with you. So you just never know, guys, if you come forward as a host, where it's going to lead. And it's had great ripple effects. And I think that's something that's, for me, been really amazing to feel for myself, but also to watch, is that, as sort of Darren said, there's a timelessness here, but there's also this incredible ripple effect and impact that we're having that I don't think we see all the details of yet, but I'm sure many of our hosts can vouch for, as well as for us personally. I've faced a lot of fears hosting that series and doing a job as well, even that I've never done before. So this has been a big career shift for me, but in a really positive way. So yeah, I think the way it's set up is a very strong foundation for everything else that happens from that base.
Yeah, I think if I would add anything to that, Maxine, I've enjoyed watching you grow as a host over the last few months. That's been really exciting, as with the other hosts. And then it's become further exciting for me now to watch you pass on your wisdom to new hosts and people that we're now introducing into the podcast fray. But I think there's a couple of quick thoughts that spring to mind in terms of the process side of things and the work that we do together. One is that I learned so much, and just working with this team, even though I have expertise on the sort of more technical side of it, I'm learning so much about how to organize people, how to organize ourselves, and effective collaboration. Often when I'm chatting to other people about teams that function really well, I'm using us as an example, and I feel really proud of that. The other thing that sort of comes to mind is I think that we're walking the talk as well. So we do these webinars and we're offering what we know to people in our community, but we're actually demonstrating it as well. One of the great privileges I have with those Q&As is to sort of peel back the curtain and show people in those live webinars what we're doing, how we're doing it, and what's effective, what's working, and sometimes what's not as well. And I think it's really great that the AC are leading by example, from a marketing channel perspective, but also from a almost a technology perspective, as well as a people perspective. So I think it's a really nice feeling to not just be sharing this knowledge, but to actually be doing it as well and actively learning. And we're constantly sharing what we learn and what we see and what we find to the benefit of others.
Miranda.
Yeah, I think definitely in terms of the process, this team has been a real privilege to work with. I think we've got a really good balance between being very efficient as a team. I mean, we're pretty small. Was it 4 of us? And bearing in mind, we're all very remote. So we have a call once a week and then off we go and get on with it. But I think to have a team where you've got process in place that we're learning as we go, and it's really been tweaked and fine-tuned, and it will continue to be. So to have that where we're all really agile in that sense, but also have a side to it where we're all listened to, and if we can bring new ideas each week. And my background is marketing. I don't have a coaching background, but if I say, hey, what about this subject or these ideas, they'll be listened to and they'll be taken on board, and most likely they'll be used and implemented. And it is quite unique, I think, in a team to have that the precision that we manage to obtain week on week to produce all the podcasts. As Smaranda said, we don't take a break. Christmas, Easter, we're producing. but also to have that side of creativity that's consistent as well every week. I think that's a real privilege and something that I imagine, Rob, is part of what it's lovely to be able to share with other people learning this.
Yeah, thank you. We've talked about the processes, but what's coming over through the conversation as well is these deeper values that we all have. And I wondered if any of you had some comments on that.
Well, I think, I can share something. We had a conversation briefly last week, didn't we? And I think in terms of a principle or a value, one of the things that I mentioned in our conversation was Stephen Covey, who wrote lots of really fabulous books. But one of the things he wrote about was the 8th habit, which is find your voice and help others to find theirs. And I think that's something that's a real value of, the organisation. With the things that we do, we try and support our community to share their voice, their insight, their experience in different ways, whether that's through events, through digital learning, through writing, but also the podcast channel has become a really instrumental and influential way for people to kind of share their voice and to share their insights. And also to, as you would have learned, Maxine, like I did when I was one of the guinea pig hosts. So I had the first go at hosting. Beyond Sue done a few of the original ones, but the first proper episode. And the reason I was keen to do that was because I knew that I was going to make lots of mistakes, as I always do. And, this team would hold those mistakes and we'd learn together. And I think that's been so wonderful to see, is that, that sense of continuous improvement, listening to each other, deeply looking to collaborate has flown through everything that we're doing and everything that's being produced. The other thing that we always wanted to maintain, and at one point I know I started trying to twiddle with the dials, if you like, behind in the background. I managed to ruin something slightly, and it meant that I had to kind of record at least one of the shows twice. That was a good lesson as well. It's like, actually stay away from the dials. Let Rob look after that. He looks after the kind of the audio aspects. That's his mastery. Let him kind of look after that. So I think that was also a really good learning, because what we wanted to do was we wanted to make sure this was a really professional, high quality product that actually is shared with the audience. And I think we've managed to do that. But back to what I was saying about Stephen Covey's 8th habit and find your voice and help others to find theirs. I think that's something that, I'm really proud to see. And it's great to hear your journey, Maxine. I know there's been a whole bunch of other people that are hosting, whether it's a whole series or hosting a couple of episodes, but they all mention how supportive this team is and how, held they feel and, enabled them to kind of learn. It was things like, what mic should I have? What system do we use? It's all those basic things that you forget. But actually, this team has put it in place now and we've learnt what works and we're able to kind of help and guide people. And I think that's something we can be really proud of. But I love hearing different people's voices. And I mean both the host as their experience develops and you hear the confidence grow and you hear them just get used to the kind of audio farts that you sometimes do, the mistakes you make, and you actually just surface on. You don't make a big thing of it anymore. You just crack on with it. I love the fact that we're on this podcast and there we are with Miranda's new baby daughter, which is just brilliant. And I think there's a humanity to that and a humility to that I think is really wonderful. And I love that. And I love hearing that exploration and that journey from the hosts and then also the guests. You can really hear as guests start to warm up, as the host gets them into a comfortable place. And I know that wasn't necessarily easy when I first started doing it. I had to learn, how do I do that? How do I make sure that I feel confident so that the guests feel confident? But it's becoming more and more professional as we get better at guiding the hosts, supporting the hosts. And, I think that's something we can be really, really proud of. So I think finding people's voices, holding a really high professional standards, and we continue to seek to raise that bar. I think that's something we can all be really proud of. But yeah, I'm loving listening to the stories from different people.
I was just looking, just to continue that from what Darren has shared. I was looking this morning at our initial strategy papers around building the AC podcast channel. And one of our guiding principles there was to amplify the AC and its community's voice by broadcasting meaningful, engaging, enriching content which demonstrates the AC human touch. One that is member-centric, diverse, inclusive, and transformative. So I just read that to you now. And I think that really applies. We didn't know how it was going to play out as we wrote that. But I think that really applies in what we do, especially with what Darren was also describing, in the way we are offering a platform for various hosts to be creative, to share what they're really passionate about and share that in the conversations that they have with their guests. So one of the things that we're really proud of is that we haven't brought onto here into the podcast channel, we haven't brought only experienced hosts. Actually, we had effectively Sue Stockdale in the beginning, who had done a lot of podcasts and for the AC and for her practice before. And we had Rob, who had done hosting before. And absolutely everyone else was completely new to it. And they wanted to do it. They just had never done it before. And the fact that we were able to support them on the way, mentor them on the way, create that mechanism around everything that they've done for them to just flourish and be able to do this. And they've all done a brilliant job. And Maxine, you've been one of those hosts, and Darren too. He shared that who, you have that, you're nervous about it in the beginning and you don't know how it's going to play out. And the conversations that we're having with the hosts, whoever comes to us and said, I could host on such and such topic, the conversation that we're having with them in the beginning is always that, what is your topic? What is the bit that will really fire up in all the conversations that you're going to have, in all the interviews? Because that's the most important, because then we create the mechanism around you to be a good host, to do the right audio, to have the right guests, to make it sound brilliant and all of that. But if the content, if the topic is something that you're passionate about, then it's just going to flow. I think that's something that we really value, and it also shows up our values as a team and as the Association for Coaching, because we're always trying to amplify the community voice, as we were saying in the beginning. And it also creates those ripple effects in everything that we are doing, because then the hosts are bringing interesting guests, and then the conversations are valuable, and then those episodes, those conversations just live there forever after. They're just valuable for a really long time. It's not time constrained. It's actually timeless, I think.
I think what also comes out of that I think the nature of having people becoming hosts who haven't been hosts before and are learning and are coming from a place of passion rather than experience. The conversations that we're having, if you're a coach or you're within the coaching community, you can come away with tangible advice, ideas that you can really apply and use. And if you're not, these conversations are so open that you can listen as someone who's not involved in coaching at all and take so much away from it and come away with so many thoughts. I think that inclusivity is really lovely. And I think that probably comes from a place of people who want to do it, who aren't necessarily doing it specifically from I'm creating a podcast point of view, or I am a coach doing this. It's a double that means it's a lot more open to more people.
I was just wondering what challenges you've come up against, if any, at all on the journey that you've been on.
I can't say that we came about a lot of different challenges that I can remember. We set it all up fairly quickly. So 2020, when we launched this at the end of 2020 was a busy year for us, leaving aside the global experience of pandemic, lockdown, and everything that 2020 brought to the world. We ran a quite big virtual conference on coaching in the workplace in June 2020. And I'm mentioning that because we kind of piloted the podcasting experience before that conference by interviewing some of the speakers at the conference in advance of that event. And that was our first podcast series, effectively, on coaching in the workplace. And because 2020 was such a trying year for everyone and for companies, for workplaces in general as well, when we set up our podcast channel and we decided to start with the first kind of official series as part of the channel, again on coaching in the workplace, just to see how the year ended. Well, at the time we didn't know that this was going to continue for another couple of years. So we thought, okay, that's the pandemic year. That's the COVID-19 year with lockdowns and everything that we went through. And with that change in the way workplaces would function, with people working from home all of a sudden, home offices and virtual working and virtual teams and everything. So we wanted to see how that would look like at the end of that year. And we went back and interviewed a number of leaders and coaches and people who would bring that expertise. And that was our first official series on coaching in the workplace. But the setup of it all was fairly quick. So looking back, I'm sure at the time there were things that we could have called challenges. But looking back and, 2 years ago when we were doing this, I don't remember any big things. So it went fairly smoothly because we set it up in like 3 months or so and put it out there. So it worked out fairly nicely. And what happened is that we continued those conversations with a number of other themes just after. So we said, okay, a relevant topic again from that was health and well-being, and where people would be, where they would find themselves currently, and how coaching can help with that. And I'm sure Darren can say a little bit more about that because he hosted that series on health and well-being. Then we had a series on Boost Your Coaching Business, which Rob hosted. Then we've started, so that those are were our first trial series to see how everything works and where we set up everything. And I think that worked very well because then when we started having hosts that were external to our team, then we already had quite a bit of experience on how everything will work, and we could actually support them and manage the entire process smoothly. So from there, that point onwards, from the Coaching in the Climate Crisis series that we've done with George Warren, we started with other hosts. So we did something on climate and on diversity and inclusion, then on technology and innovation in coaching. And then Maxine came with making coaching creative. And now we've launched very recently the beginnings of another channel, a regional channel for what we call the DACH region. So that's Germany, Austria, Switzerland region for AC. So there's going to be a channel in other languages than English, which is French and German, specifically for this region. So we have Sylvain who is hosting on that channel. And then now we started a series on making time for marketing, which again, Rob is hosting. So there's a lot of topics also that are showing up, which is brilliant.
Yeah, and then there are a wide range of topics as well, and that's what I'm enjoying. It's such diversity, appealing to different coaches, but also hopefully opening up the minds to coaches that may be a bit reluctant on some of those topics. And it's amazing how we skipped from innovation and technology with Claudia into my creative topic. I love the way we can switch like that, and it's not that they're disconnected, but that variety has been, I think, makes it really interesting for our community. Is there anything sort of on the journey any of you have felt that surprised you?
I think coming back to the challenges there, and in the context of surprise, what's been interesting for me with the AC podcast series so far is, you always get technical challenges with any kind of technology, and particularly online technology as well. So that keeps us on our toes. I was going to say earlier that one of the challenges is staying ahead of the game, but I don't think we really have a problem with that, actually. I think we're pretty forward thinking in terms of capturing what's right on the leading edge of coaching at the moment. And I think that's been a surprise to me, because not so much the topic themes, if you like, but the content that's come out of those series on those themes, listening to experts and speaking to other coaches. I think that's certainly, for me, sort of going through it all with a fine-tooth comb, just some of the insights and the wisdom have sort of blown my mind in terms of where coaching is going and what the possibilities and opportunities are. And it's really exciting for me to know that we've sort of almost captured that in stone as a timeless piece of sort of, media content for people to reflect upon in decades to come. But I think that it's just been the quality of the guests, the depth of coverage that we've been able to give to these deserving topics. That's been a real surprise to me. I think one of the challenges that we've got with that is not so much finding guests, but finding hosts. And I think going forward, perhaps another technical challenge we may have as we start to launch podcasts in different languages is finding technical people who are native speakers to be able to edit those podcasts and to be able to help us carry forward from a regional point of view in terms of what's current for them and cutting edge for them. So it's to some degree finding the technical support, but in another way, almost finding a new way to have more radars, if you like, around the globe that can help inform our global podcast strategy. That's probably a challenge we're going to have to look at facing pretty soon. And other than that, it's sometimes just making sure we've got enough content in the pipeline to go out. because everybody got very busy over the last 2 years, and it seems like online schedules for everyone got filled up pretty rapidly. It certainly used to be a lot easier locking guests in prior to then. So I think we're going to sort of see some challenges along those lines going forward, but there's been some really nice surprises in terms of trying to surmount those challenges for us so far.
I think from my personal point of view of being a host as well, it surprised me how much impact it had on myself personally. And I really recommend the journey to anyone. You know, I was afraid, nervous, all the rest of it. Started off with one guest, that led to another one. There was a domino effect of how I got the guests. You know, some of it a little bit last minute and tentative, but it was an amazing journey and I did grow from it. But also what's happened from it as well, that those guests that we interviewed have become a community within themselves. They're collaborating together. There's some other ideas coming from it. I've had contacts from people on LinkedIn saying thank you for the series and wanting to connect with me. So it's extended my network. But also they're asking, you know, how they can then maybe they're coming up with ideas to either be a guest or a host possibly. So I think for anyone out there who's even got a seed of an idea, I agree with Miranda, go with your passion. You know, I chose a topic I was passionate about and I hope that came across in the interviews. And I was talking with people. I've now made friends with some of those guests. You know, it was just wonderful for us to share our passion out with the, you know, of the global community and extend that out. So I can't even list right now all the kind of effects and ripple effects it had, but it was it's been an extremely worthy journey for me personally, and just to see the impact it's had out there. And you do get great support. I mean, I had great support from you, Rob, with all the technical side, which is not my strength. Here I am sitting here with a professional podcast mic, which, you know, I wouldn't have anticipated a few months ago. So it's always worth contacting us and having a conversation with us about any ideas you have. You don't need to know how to set up a podcast or how to do it. You just need to have a passionate idea that you have on a topic that you'll be interested, you know, you think is interesting for the coaching community. It's a wonderful experience and made extra special because there is such a supportive, positive team that is open to new ideas and wanting to hear what you're curious about and what you would like to talk about.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, actually. We really do want people that just have a fantastic idea to show up, knock on our door, you know, come and connect with any one of the team and come and share with us what you'd love to make happen. Because the great thing about this is this team is, it's a bit like, you know, when you're seeing your small children learning to ride a bike, you know, there they are with their stabilizers on. And, you know, you start with the stabilizers or you start with the balance bikes, whichever your philosophy is. We started with stabilizers. But very quickly, you take those stabilizers off and there you are finding yourself running behind them, you know, down a hill, typically in a park. And next thing you know, you've let them go and off they fly and hopefully they break at the end. But that's what this team is so fabulous at doing, is supporting people that have never experienced being a host of a podcast or even maybe of conducting interviews in an audio fashion. And this team is brilliant at supporting people to do that. And a whole bunch of people that have been hosts on the AC one have then gone on to kind of create their own channel or to be guests on other people's podcasts as, you know, as a host or as to be interviewed. So I think that's a really important point, is that the richness of this. And the wonderful thing for this team is we don't know what we don't know. You know, someone will come out from the, the global orbit and they'll come to us and say, I've got this idea for X. Could I have a go at it? And this team is very likely to say yes. Let's schedule it in and let's find a way to have a go with it and sort of play with it and explore with it. So I think that's a really important point. And it's great, Maxine, that you're able to share your experiences and how supportive and supported you felt, because that is something that we really do want. We want more people to come forward. We've also had hosts from Australia, haven't we, Smaranda? That's another series of guests and hosts have come from Australia as well, which is fantastic. So, you know, what we're excited about is how can we support diverse voices? How can we support people from all different parts of the world? The fact that we're also going to be able to do it in different languages is fantastic. But that diversity of voice and supporting people on their journey to give them a bit of support as they step forwards is something this team's really good at. And so I think it's something we're really proud of and that we can rejoice and hopefully we'll do more of as we go forwards.
Yeah, because I think you mentioned in our conversation last week, Darren, about it, the podcast being a self-growth tool. And that happens on many levels, I think, doesn't it? Obviously for the hosts and the guests, but it's also part of what we're trying to provide for the coaching community. You know, it's about your personal development and growth.
Yeah, well, I think this is sort of the edge of my own thinking, and it's something we explored briefly last week. But as Rob was saying, there's so much insight and so many pearls of wisdom in these interviews. And it's how can we encapsulate those and capture those in a way that make them meaningful. So that's something that we as a team are thinking about. What could we do to visualize some of those things, or to actually capture them in a way so that people can kind of, take that insight, not just from the stories, but also from maybe stories that you haven't heard. Because the thing about the different series that we do is that they really do go into some depth, and they go off in different angles of those depths as well. So that's something that, we love as a collective team. But yeah, I'd love to find a way to codify the insight and wisdom in a way that is consistently codified, not just in the audio, but find another way. So don't know what that is at the moment, but that's a sort of an edge of our own learning here as a team, which I think is quite exciting. It's what can we do to support the codification of insight, knowledge, wisdom, stories, so that it becomes meaningful. Miranda, I think, was saying about the fact that it's actionable insight, it's practical, it's real tips and tools that people can kind of take away with them. And I think that, that's something that we'll always want to kind of ensure is weaved into this podcast going forwards as well.
So Miranda, I was just wondering as well, from some of the guests and hosts, does it go the other way? Because I know we've had some guests from the digital learning, when they've worked with us for digital learning, but has it happened the other way, where somebody's done something with digital learning, or has been a guest on the podcast rather, and then is considered to do something in a webinar or a signature program or something?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things that we're trying to do with everything that we do on the learning side. So if you think of it, is that type of offering that is catered for every learning style. So you would have the webinars, which are video, you have slides, you have a conversation, you have the activities, the breakout rooms, the practice element, and so on. So that's a style. Then you would have the podcasts, which are audio. So it's a very different style of learning. You take it with you wherever you're going. If you're going for a run or for a walk, or we're always discussing that if you're folding the laundry or putting the dishes in the dishwasher. I mean, those are moments where you just put your headsets and it's great moments to listen to a podcast, and you're still getting so much from it. And you don't have to be in front of your computer anymore. So it's a different style of learning. And then we have, as the Association for Coaching, we have the Coaching Perspectives magazine, and that's the written version of it. And that's thought-provoking, and we're really proud of our magazine from so many points of view, because it just opens up to the big conversations for the coaching community and beyond that, for where we're at in the society nowadays. And what we're trying to do all the time is to connect the dots between these three means of learning and of delivering the learning, in a sense. So you would have people who have written an article for the magazine that would be interviewed for the podcast, and then at some point later down the journey, they would come for a webinar and deliver something for us in that type of format, or the opposite. You would have people who delivered webinars who would say, oh, they're really great. They could fit really well in that particular area or theme or topic for the podcast, and at some point they write something for the magazine. So we're trying to connect the dots constantly so that people have access to that information, whichever their learning style would be. And that's part of the vision as well, to have that omni-channel, to have something that everyone can access indifferent of how they like to access things and what their preferences are. And we also do cross-marketing in this way, because it really helps us with bringing things together from different aspects. So by all means, yes, we create those dots all the time. We did this a lot with the technology in coaching podcast series and the April edition of the Coaching Perspectives magazine. So all the guests that we identified with Claudia Day, who hosted the series, not all of them, but a lot of them have contributed to the magazine, which was also on technology, the April edition of the magazine. So those things kind of link together so beautifully. And what we didn't capture there, we captured on the other side. So that works out really well. And now with the magazine and what we're doing in digital learning is that we're trying to bring the magazine to life a little bit more. So those written articles are not just sitting there, but we're doing interviews on LinkedIn Live with authors of the articles in the magazine. So we've had a few of those on technology going for now in June, July, and so on. We have another one in September. So I think that's one of the things that is making the AC learning offering quite unique, because everything is linked together. We're trying to in so many ways.
I was just listening to you, Smaranda, and Darren and the others. I was just thinking that this is just a real indication of what the AC is all about as well, in the sense that I'm not a well-known person. I didn't get to become a host because I was famous. I'm not known at all. There's this huge range where people like myself who are sort of unknown and new to all this can have a voice, right through to those bigger names that we've had on as guests and people that you have working with you in digital learning. To me, it's almost like this kind of rich garden where, you've got the little new plants growing, but they're allowed to be seen and against the big ones. And this real mix, it's very grounded and it's very humble. And I really, really like that, and indicates the AC wanting to reach out and become part of the democratization of coaching in many ways.
Well, I think it's so funny that, the phrase democratizing coaching, I did a TEDx and said about democratizing coaching about 8-9 years ago. Some people have a real issue with that phrase. It's really funny. It just makes me laugh. That's why I was sort of sitting there smiling. From an AC perspective, as I said at the very beginning, it's a community. And the beauty of that community is it's an open community. The AC has always had an open approach. It flows through everything that we do. From our accreditation is open, so we accept training and people's training from all sorts of different schools of thoughts, all sorts of different professional bodies, and we are the only organisation that takes that open approach, whereas others have got a more closed or pyramid type of style. The way that we draw the organisation is always in sort of circles, that sense of we are in it together and we are collaborative. We don't always get that right. As in any organisation, not everything, there are elements of not hierarchy, but where different decision gets made by different groups. But as much as possible, we do try to ensure that it's a really genuinely collaborative organisation. And especially when it comes to our community, it's like we want to support our community. We are, after all, the Association for Coaching at its genesis was created for the benefit of coaches via coaches. That was the genesis of this organisation back in 2002. And we've never forgotten that. And I don't think we'll ever forget that. I think that's the humility that needs to always be part of this. And the beauty is that, we've seen it, the explosion of coaching. It was always going to happen, but it's just, especially during COVID, the number of people that have discovered coaching and the power of coaching and how it's useful and can support them, especially as we've seen, mental health challenges for people in lockdown and things like that. I saw a report just 2 days ago about the fact that there just aren't enough counsellors in the world, and a lot of coaches have actually emerged to support people to create an open space. And that doesn't mean just as a one-to-one. It means as a community and as groups, as subgroups in these sort of coaching circles that have been set up. And I think that's what's really important for us as a community. And the other thing is just to say, coaching is always going to evolve. What we're talking about here in 22, it'll be interesting to see what we're talking about in 2032, 2042. And what does coaching and the profession of coaching look like at that point in time? I don't know. And the way that we'll discover that is by listening to people, allowing those people that are out there on the edge of society or on the edge of coaching and the edge of the profession to bring their ideas and their ideals and bring their community into and share their stories with this community. That's how change happens, I think. Yeah, you get stuff at the core, but actually it's at the edges. And that's why we're always excited to support people who aren't the known voices, who are the quiet voices, the hidden voices. We all know through our coach training and leadership training, you're trained to watch out for the introverts. You're trained to look out for the quiet voices, because quite often when they're sitting in a room, they might be sitting there on something very, very insightful. And so definitely from this team's perspective and from this channel's perspective, we really do celebrate those quiet voices and want to support those quiet voices and celebrate those people that have got something different and alternative to bring, even if it means it's challenging us as a professional community or as a professional body. We're open. We want that challenge. The conversations about diversity and inclusion, as I sat and listened to some of those, I found them really challenging on some levels. On a personal level, I listen to our podcast on a Monday evening when I drive an hour to go to football, and I love listening to our podcast as I do my drive there. And I'm sitting in my car, on the M25, and I'm listening and I'm being challenged, and it wasn't comfortable. At times that's not comfortable, and it shouldn't be. And I think that's really important for us as well, is never shy away from the difficult conversations, the tough subjects, the hard subjects. I think the more that we can encourage that and the more that we can bring a diversity of voices to it that help us to look in the mirror and to challenge ourselves individually and collectively as a community, then that's a fantastic thing. And I think the more that we can do this on this podcast channel, the more it will then flow through to Smaranda's point about the fact that people that come on this channel then flow into different areas to teach people different things and to support people with their CPD. So I think that's something that, we really want to celebrate and we want to continue going forward. So anyone who's out there who's got a burning idea or a passion or something they really would love to kind of shine a light on and have got a small community or don't have a community, because that's the other thing about the AC is if you don't have a community, we do have a community. So we can help you go and find people that might be interested in the subject that you want to speak. And that's another part of what this community is about. It's about stitching people from different parts of the world who wouldn't ordinarily connect and collide. We can help you to make that happen. And we can help you find people that think like you or think alternatively from you as well. That's something that I think should be celebrated, and we should be ensuring that we consistently keep bringing that to this platform and this channel.
Just want to support what Darren's saying in terms of that community building. I think that has actually now, as I reflect on it, been a really nice surprise for me, is when somebody comes forward with an idea with the podcast series or for a podcast series through Smaranda and the connections that the digital learning team have been able to establish, as well as the wider AC organisation, the reach is tremendous. And it fascinates me how we're able to very quickly find people, experts with years of experience and often at the cutting edge of coaching, very quickly to be able to speak about a topic. I mean, I'll use the recent technology and innovation series as an example, but every series is actually an example of what I think Darren and I are perhaps talking about here. And, credit to Smaranda with the digital learning team, the webinars that they do, the signature programs, even for the series that's current at the moment about make time for your marketing. It's, I'm being introduced as a host to people I've never met. And I love that stretch for me, that opportunity to meet someone new. And certainly looking back at the previous series that we've made, I think for you, Maxine, this would be pretty safe to say that you've created a community, a new community, a sub-community, if you like, just by doing that series, inviting those people to be part of that series. And then they have gone on to connect with each other. And now you're all talking, and I see your sort of conversations on LinkedIn and in other places where right there is another new community which wouldn't have existed if that series hadn't existed. And I think that bringing people together and those connections that the AC has been able to make through the podcasting work we do, it's almost like the podcast is an excuse to create new communities within the coaching world and profession. I think that's really special.
I was just wondering, each of you, is there something you particularly remember about these first 100 episodes? Is there moments you remember or things you've learned, any other surprises that you've come across? I wondered, Miranda, if you had anything that you particularly had thought of while we were talking.
Yeah, I think for me, coming from what Darren was saying about, if you have an idea, if you want to discuss something, and following on to Rob saying, we have the community to help you make that happen. I think one thing that struck me is the spaciousness of the podcasts, that you can be provided with this space that can be expanded to really discuss whatever you want. And there's no strict guidelines of it must be within what we define coaching to be. You can make it what you want it to be, and you can really take the time to explore areas that you want to. I remember I think Coaching in the Climate Crisis was a series that really struck me, because if you hear the title Coaching in the Climate Crisis, you might have one idea of what that means and what that content will be. And every conversation was so different. I remember really enjoying, I think it was Mark Jacobs was discussing his time in Madagascar, and it might not be what we would say coaching is or what someone might deem coaching to be, but the conversation not only talked about what he could bring to the community with his coaching experience, but it was actually more about what he learned from them and just the way they worked as a community and the benefits he learned from that, and he could take away with him of what it means to work together from a society that he hadn't come across before. And so these ideas or ways that perhaps aren't in the Western world. And I think that wouldn't have come about if he didn't have that space you can talk about what you want to talk about, and it's going to open up new ideas. And I think for me, that was a really lovely thing to see how broad a term coaching could be and the conversations that created.
Miranda, did you have anything you remember in particular?
I think every series brought something new and different. And with diversity and inclusion series, Alex Morgan, she brought such different perspectives of where in the coaching profession we need to pay attention and what do we need to pay attention to. And it was just kind of bringing that awareness into the conversation that I found brilliant. And every series is different. So we're trying to mix it up in terms of themes and topics and be really relevant as well. And with the different styles of hosts and the different types of guests you would have, there's always a different flavor to it. So the technology and innovation in coaching. I love the parts where we tackled both the technology parts of the AI, the platforms, the machine learning, and the ethics of it all. And how does that fit into coaching and the question marks that coaches would have. So every series had something new to bring. And I'm not going to get now into each and one of them. I just wanted to mention the episode that I really, really enjoyed listening to. And if you haven't heard it until now, if you haven't listened to it, then I'd suggest going back, which was the reflections from the first year of our coaching podcast channel. And that where we brought together the 5 first hosts from the first year of our channel, and they brought kind of all the expertise and knowledge that they have gathered as they interviewed so many guests into one longer but really inspiring conversation. So that's somewhere where you're able to look forward to everything that the coaching profession is where we're at the moment, in a sense. And that was really inspiring for me, just having all those nuggets together into one big conversation and everything they've learned, be it health and well-being or how coachings are building their coaching practice or growing it in these times. What are the opportunities out there? Then the climate bits, then the diversity and inclusion. So all of those conversations together, that was really, really valuable and inspiring. And I'll probably do it again. Such reflections from the year. With the hosts of this year, the 2022 hosts. So watch that space.
Yeah, there was a great conversation. I found that one really inspiring too. I think it's one of the first ones I listened to actually. And I was like, wow, this is a great introduction for me in a way to the whole podcast channel. I've got some vivid visual memories of being the host of like listening to Pearl Jordan, who uses dance with coaching, which even surprised me that existed. But when she was talking, Rob will remember this, she's moving her body around. She's almost dancing as she was talking, and you can't get that on the audio. But getting to know all these different personalities, all in the coaching field, empowered me to think, I can be myself as a coach. And hopefully this is a message we're getting through in all of our different series, is that, you find your thing, you can express yourself, you don't have to fit one particular box or version of a coach. There's many ways to do that and many ways to discover what's authentic. But for me, it's about integrity as well. So for me to not use creativity with coaching would be a failure for my integrity of what I think matters to me. So, and I think, that particular conversation where you got all the hosts together was just so rich and inspiring for me personally. So, it was wonderful. Is there any magic moments from you, Rob?
Oh, all the time. That's not just me saying that. I genuinely mean that. For me, I agree with Smaranda. I felt that panel chat with the hosts from last year was a particularly special occasion for me, just reflecting. Because we weren't just reflecting on the podcast. I think we realised that through the lens of the podcast, what we were seeing was happening in coaching and where the whole coaching industry and profession is going and where coaching is going outside of that. I think that's what really came through for me in that conversation. And perhaps for that reason alone, it was special. But there were other reasons too. I think just the collaboration and the fun of doing it. That would have been my outstanding sort of reflection, I think, until Claudia did her panel chat and then you did yours, Maxine. And then all of a sudden, these panel chats are just something special. I think when we bring a few minds together, they create this sort of thing that's bigger than the individual minds, if you like. There's something really special for me listening to those episodes where we've got a few people on there and they're getting together and they're sharing ideas. I don't know how you felt about that, Maxine, but I felt that collaboration that you did, that panel chat, was a particularly special one for me. And for our listener, if this is the first episode you're listening to, I reckon the next episode you should listen to is one of those conversations where there's been a few guests brought together, particularly Maxine's. So that's one of the things that stood out. The other thing for me is just the joy that there are very few, if any, episodes or recordings that we've done together where the guest hasn't enjoyed the experience at the end. And for them, sometimes it's been a stretch. For others, it's been the first time they've ever been a guest on a podcast series. And it feels such a privilege to be able to introduce them to that world and give them that experience to be able to then go on and do more. But I really do enjoy seeing the joy at the end of each recording, or hearing the joy if I'm not there present in the recording. And just everyone's a changed person that's involved. I think even in the short recording of an episode, you're not the same person at the end of that episode as you were at the beginning. And I think that for me is a tremendously rewarding experience to be part of.
Yeah. Was there anything you wanted to add, Darren, on that? Anything you remember?
No, I think all the great insights and pearls of wisdom have been captured there. I do think the panels I think there's something very special about them. I agree with that. I think the cacophony, the jazz band, the coming together of different voices and just seeing what plays out. I think there's something really special about that. And I'd love us to do even more of that and sort of explore that even further and actually bring people together that are not talking about the same subjects, that are coming from different, completely polar opposites, maybe, could be something that we could kind of explore as well and test. And the beauty of this is it's meant to be purposefully playful. It's meant to be trying new things and testing new things and not formulaic and sticking to the same sort of approach. I think that's the other thing that's so wonderful about this. We use different metaphors in the AC, but, having a sandpit is one, or a playground is another one that we use quite a lot. And I really love seeing the fact that we've got a sandpit here or a playground that we can kind of play and test with. And we can bring different playmates in and sort of listen to the music and to listen to their voice and their insights and to see what emerges through those conversations. And you're capturing that, and you're capturing that for time and more. It's just incredible. So, yeah, I'd love us to do even more of that. But I think for me, I'm really proud to be part of this team. I think you've all done, and I include Wendy in that as well, and others that are no longer with us, but have been part of this journey. It's just incredible what this collective team has been able to bring together, along with the guests and the hosts. And, I'm just very thankful to be part of that. And, I look forward to seeing where this is in 5, 10, 15, 20 years' time, if I'm still here on this wonderful planet we call home. We'll wait and see. But yeah, I think that's where I'm at. It's just that I just love the voices, love listening to different stories. I can't wait to find out what comes out of the next series that's being recorded right now. And then what's beyond that, what's at the next horizon. I'm always listening for that because I'm not involved day to day with the decisions on it now. So it's a real joy for me because I get to kind of experience that and find out, this is where we're going now. This is the sort of avenue that we're exploring, which is just brilliant. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. It's a real pleasure and privilege to kind of get to work with you and to watch you create art in the moment. So thank you for that.
I think we're nearly wrapping up. I just wanted to check in if you had any, Smaranda, where we're going in the future with this. I think we've probably given some clues in our answers already that we're just evolving step by step. But if you had any thoughts on future developments or potentials.
Evolving, definitely. We've grown on this journey since I've been on it with digital learning for the past 8 years. So there is always something new with podcasts. It's what's emerging is always surprising and insightful because it's not only us thinking what's next, but it's also, as we said, we have these insights from the hosts that are coming, putting themselves forward to host a series or just reaching out to have a conversation. And then we're saying, maybe you could host on that topic. And that's kind of how everything emerges. And that's what we're proud of, as well as everyone mentioned. And it kind of keeps us on our toes in a sense, because we know what's going to be up until the end of the year, but we don't know what we'll do in a year from now, what kind of topics and things. So it's all emerging, and we're purposely fully playing with it. And it's all about keeping ourselves open to what's coming, to what's needed, to what the community needs as well, and to what the way the AC can support the coaching community and beyond. We're looking at individual businesses and society where it's not a closed community, it's a really open one. And the ripple effects are quite far-fetching in so many ways. So, there's a bigger vision around everything that is learning. I mentioned a little bit of that, how putting everything together. But with the podcasts is always something new that is emerging, and we're just being here for that, being present.
Yeah, I think there is no definite answer. That's how we work, is we emerge and we evolve. Yeah. And I think that's what's really exciting for me. I love the fun part of what we do together. And I think we all sort of know the impact of coaching a bit in the world. And I think the podcast just shows you the deep levels that goes to. That it's not just about, we have lots of advice, practical tips for people in our podcast episodes, but we also have these more deeper and rich conversations that fit in with the context of the world. And so in a way we can't, particularly with the way the world is going on, plan too far ahead because the world is changing constantly. But it's just been wonderful to be part of this team. Thank you so much for what you've spoken about today. It's amazing to be involved in something that's meaningful and playful. As rich as it has been. So thank you so much for your contribution today, and see if we're here on the 200th episode together.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maxine, for hosting today, and Darren and Smaranda for having the faith and vision in making this come alive. So I extend my gratitude to you too.
Yeah,
absolutely. And me as well for this entire team. I know what an important part each and one of us are playing in the context. So, Miranda, we look forward to having you back, like fully part of the team. And it's so wonderful to have Maxine on the team. It's bringing so much more richness to the team, and the fact that she's jumped into hosting is just bringing that additional expertise to everything that we're doing. So I'm really proud of this team as well. So thanks to each and one of you, Darren, Maxine, Miranda, and Rob. It's a great pleasure and privilege to be working with you.
It is. Thank you. Thank you for listening to another podcast by the Association for Coaching. For 20 years, our purpose has been to inspire and champion coaching excellence, advance the coaching profession, and make a sustainable difference to individuals, organisations and society. To find out more about the AC and our member benefits, follow us on LinkedIn or explore our webpage at associationforcoaching.com. There you can keep up to date with our latest podcast episodes, enjoy the wealth of digital learning offerings, and gain insights from our Coaching Perspectives magazine.